If you want more of these videos, please hit the subscribe button on the bottom right of the video. In the summer of 1976, Tangshan was a city of great importance, located in Hebei province in northeastern China. Not just a place where people lived, a powerful industrial hub, known as the cradle of China's modern industry. For over a century, a leader in coal mining, factories produced steel, cement, ceramics, home to more than 1 million people. They worked in the mines and in the factories. They built their lives around the promise of this thriving industrial center. The streets were busy. The future seemed bright. Few could have imagined the catastrophe about to unfold, but the ground beneath them held a hidden danger. On that fateful night, as the city slept, there was an eerie calm. The moment of destruction came without warning. In the very early hours of July 28, 1976, at precisely 3:42 a.m., the ground beneath Tangshan erupted. The Great Tangshan Earthquake struck with terrifying force. Its magnitude was measured at 7.6 on the Richter scale. This was a massive release of energy, equivalent to hundreds of atomic bombs exploding at once. The epicenter was located almost directly beneath the densely populated city. The shallow depth of the earthquake, only about 7 miles below the surface, meant that the shaking was incredibly intense. The raw power was unleashed straight into the heart of the sleeping metropolis. The initial shock lasted for a devastating 23 seconds. In that short span of time, the world was turned upside down. The violent shaking was felt across northeastern China. It was strong enough to be felt in Beijing, more than 90 miles away. But for the people of Tangshan, it was an apocalypse. The ground rose and fell in violent waves. Buildings did not just shake, they disintegrated. The unreinforced brick structures simply collapsed into piles of rubble. When the shaking finally stopped and the dust began to settle, the scene was one of almost total annihilation. The city of Tangshan had ceased to exist. In its place was a flat, gray landscape of debris. It was estimated that over 85% of the buildings in the city had been destroyed. Homes were gone, schools were gone, workplaces were gone. The physical and social fabric of the city had been torn apart in a matter of seconds. Survivors stumbled through the darkness, surrounded by the ruins of their former lives. The familiar landmarks of their city were unrecognizable. The infrastructure that supports a modern city was completely crippled. Roads were split open by giant fissures. Bridges had collapsed into the rivers they once crossed. Railway lines were twisted into mangled ribbons of steel. This made it nearly impossible for help to get into the city. Communication lines were severed. People used their bare hands to dig through the rubble, desperately searching for family members and neighbors. The initial rescue efforts were carried out by the survivors themselves. In the hours and days following the earthquake, the response from the Chinese government was swift but faced enormous challenges. The People's Liberation Army, or PLA, was mobilized. Tens of thousands of soldiers marched toward Tangshan. Visual long line of PLA soldiers passing buckets of debris in a chain. Destroyed roads and railways made the journey extremely difficult. Soldiers cleared debris. Soldiers built temporary bridges as they went. The first soldiers who arrived came on foot. Their arrival brought organization and hope to the chaotic scene. They immediately joined survivors in manual rescue work. The rescue operation was one of the largest in human history. It was fraught with difficulty because of the scale of collapse. Heavy machinery was needed to move tons of concrete and brick. Blocked routes meant it took days for heavy equipment to arrive. The initial work was done by hand. Rescuers used shovels. Rescuers used pickaxes. Soldiers worked around the clock. Civilian volunteers worked around the clock. Stories of heroism and sacrifice emerged from the ruins. Miners dug to the surface and immediately began rescuing others. Doctors treated patients in the open air. Nurses treated patients in the open air. The final death toll of the Tangshan earthquake was staggering. The Chinese government's official figure, released years later, was 242,769 deaths, 164,851 people severely injured. The disaster is widely considered the deadliest earthquake of the 20th century. It wiped out entire families and left a deep, lasting scar on the nation's consciousness. The sheer number of casualties came from a powerful, quake-vulnerable buildings, a population caught completely by surprise at night. It was a tragedy on an almost unimaginable scale. In the aftermath, China embarked on a monumental task to rebuild Tangshan from the ground up. The old city was cleared away. A new one was planned and constructed. Buildings were designed with strict earthquake-resistant codes. The new Tangshan was built to be safer and more resilient. The reconstruction became a symbol of national pride and determination. The memory of the earthquake is preserved in Tangshan today. The story of Tangshan is not just one of loss, it is also a story of human resilience, national resolve, and a community rebuilding a new future from the ruins of its past. If you want more of these videos, please hit the subscribe button on the bottom right of the video.